and welcome to Survivor Strategy. I'm your host, Marc Perlman. Week 1 is in the books, and almost half of all the entries in all of the Survivor pools almost were in the books as well. If it wasn't for Sam Howell and the Washington Commanders coming back and beating the Arizona Cardinals. It's funny, last week I said how we're going to be picking on the Cardinals, and they almost picked us up by winning and knocking out such a large percentage of the pool. I know, for example, in the Circa, there was 38% of the entries on Washington. So that would have knocked out a tremendous amount. And obviously with the Vikings and the Seahawks losing as well, they were two of the teams that a lot of people took, thinking that the equity would be worth it for a smaller spread and a smaller chance to win. And obviously that didn't work out for those people. In regards to my pick, and I hope you tailed me as well, with the Ravens being up 7-6 at halftime wasn't ideal, but they never relinquished the lead after taking it in the first quarter. And in regards to Survivor pools and week to week, I would say that's probably one of the lowest stressed games that we'll have all year. The Ravens lost J.K. Dobbins for the season. For most teams, losing their lead back, that would be a very big deal. For the Ravens, it's really not. They're kind of a revolving door every year at running back. They always have a good offensive line and players that can just move the ball down the field. And the Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and possibly Melvin Gordon will pick up the slack, and they'll be okay in that regard. Losing Staley and Linderbaum to injuries was a pretty big deal. They both should be back in 2 weeks, most likely not playing this week. But if they're out in 2 weeks, that game against the Colts, which looks like the best time to take the Ravens besides week 1, they'll be in trouble. And their safety, Marcus Williams, is out for a while. So it's just going to be interesting to see how that team does. Lamar Jackson had a pretty bad game. He did not look like his MVP self whatsoever. So, just like I said last week, we don't really know what to expect from him specifically, getting that large guaranteed contract. You don't know what happens to a player's psyche. You don't know how they're going to play. So, that was just great to get through. As for the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers being out for the season, I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. Been saying for a very long time, any given Sunday, right? Any given Sunday, anybody can beat anybody. I don't care if it's the Cardinals and the Chiefs. I mean, you look at last year, the Colts won 4 games, and one of the games that they won was against the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. So you just don't know what's going to happen. Injuries happen. Players have good games. I mean, it's crazy, but these are the best players in the world. The best players in college, the best players in high school, they're all in the NFL. It's the best of the best. So regardless of how good or how bad a team is, you just never know on any given Sunday. So just remember that moving forward. Week after week, there's going to be upsets, and we just have to hope to be on the right side. In regards to the Circus Survivor, they're having you pick 2 extra games. You got to pick one on Thanksgiving and one on Christmas. So you're going to be picking 20 games total in order to win. That means you got to take 20 teams out of 32. So obviously they're not going to be all the best teams in the league that you're taking. We're just going to be playing the matchups. For Thanksgiving, it looks like Dallas looks like the team to take. And for Christmas, it looks like we want to say Philadelphia Eagles. The year I won $1.2 million, I remember forecasting the season out and thinking that Dallas just has to lose that game to the Raiders if we're going to win this Survivor pool. And wanting to take the Bears against the Lions. Obviously, things went my way that year, and it happened. The Bears were a 3-point favorite, and I believe we went from 125 people down to about 30. So the equity in the entries tremendously it just went crazy, went nuts. So that was really exciting. For this week 2 of the season, we're going to be gambling, all right? That's the name of the game. Coming in second place in this isn't what we want. We want to win, and there's an over $9 million prize pool out there, and we want to get it. So whether or not you're in the Circa Survivor, or whether or not you're in DraftKings or FanDuel's, wherever it may be. The team that I'm going to be going with this week is the New York Football Giants. I know they lost 40-0 last week to the Cowboys and looked like absolute trash. However, they're playing at Arizona, and they're good enough to win this game. I believe they will. I'm doing 6 entries. 3 of them will be on the aforementioned Giants. I've got 1 on the Bills, 1 on Dallas, and 1 on San Francisco. Mentioning the Thanksgiving game with Dallas isn't ideal, but it's only one of the 6 entries. So I do want to diversify my portfolio. You want to do that in the stock market. You want to do that in life. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. That's why I made such a big deal about it last week when I did it with the Ravens. You're going to have a lot of teams out there. So the max entries, for example, in the Circa is 10. But when you put a team together, I know for a fact there's at least one team of 80 people in the Circa. So we got to beat them. And they're going to be spreading their picks around. It's interesting to look at people taking 4 people took the Cardinals, 3 took the Texans, 31 didn't even put in a pick. And it's interesting, you'll see week to week, there will be at least one person that does not put in a pick every single week. It's crazy. You don't know how it happens, but it does. I mean, who knows what's going on? But it does happen. So to reiterate, 3 on the Giants, 1 Buffalo, 1 Dallas, 1 San Francisco. And I hope you guys rode with me with the Browns to win the Super Bowl at 30-1. They absolutely demolished the Cincinnati Bengals. Deshaun Watson didn't look great, but he looked good enough to win games. The defense was incredible. I mean, Joe Burrow arguably had the worst game of his career. And moving forward, the Browns are going to get better. Deshaun's going to get better. And the chemistry with Cooper, it's going to be a good season for them. And if you got 30-1, that's great. At current best price is around 20-1. One thing I want to do with you guys is I want to give you a pick at the end of each week. Whether it's a Super Bowl champion, whether it's a player award, a player prop, maybe a fantasy pickup, whatever it is, just something at the end I'm going to give you. This week, I'm going to be going to the Offensive Rookie of the Year at 37-1 at Circa. You can get Rashee Rice, and I really love this pick. Elsewhere, if you don't have access to Circa, he's around 30-1, and I love it. Kadarius Toney cannot catch the ball for whatever reason. I think he might turn it around, but it doesn't matter. Sky Moore is not that great of a receiver. He's just fast. Justin Watson, meh. And MVS worked with Aaron Rodgers. Now he's working with Patrick Mahomes. Just not that big of a fan of his whatsoever. He did have a nice catch. But Rashee Rice this week, I think he's going to blow up. And when he does, we're going to be looking at 10-15-1. So go ahead and lock up that 30-1 like we did with the Browns at 30-1. And we'll look for great things out of him. And that'll wrap it up for this week's episode. Until week 3, remember, we're all survivors.